So when you think of Mayhem, you think of this guy. And wait, we need some thrilling music to play. Hold on one second. We got to get that, thrilling, mysterious music playing while we do this. There we go. All right. So when you think of Mayhem, you think of the Allstate guy, right? Okay. Well, I'm going to introduce you to Mayhem. Okay. So this is Mayhem right here. Bertha Beronda. And let's blow up the picture. There we go. So Bertha Beronda, age 31, February 29th, 1908. Mayhem. She was charged with a crime called mayhem. And if you notice, what do you notice about her? She has this amazing smirk on her face. Okay, so this was like the crime of the century. Okay, so we are going to read about Bertha Beronda and what she did, and how a lot of men are going to be squirming right now when I tell this story. Okay, here's her mugshot here, along with other ladies in San Quentin, and this is really, really crazy. Okay, so Bertha was pretty much not your average everyday woman. She pretty much didn't take any crap. She was an original OG gangster for the day. Bertha Beronda was sentenced to 5 years in prison for mayhem in 1908. What's mayhem, you ask? Apparently, in Bertha's case, it's cutting off your cheating husband's penis with a straight razor, disguising yourself as a man, and fleeing by bicycle. This is Lorena Bobbitt, 100 years before Lorena Bobbitt. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so of course we have this crap popping up, and this crap popping up, and I see fire flames, and it turns out the husband was a fire captain. Synchronicity. Bertha and her husband, Frank Beronda, had been married for about 6 years when her assault on him took place. Frank was born Mario Narciso Beronda in 1863 to a large family with Mexican roots that had lived in California for several generations. At the time of the attack, Frank, age 43, was a fire captain with the San Jose Fire Department in Northern California. Bertha Zettel was born to German immigrant parents in rural Minnesota in 1877. She moved to California around 1900. She and Frank were married the following year. Shortly after midnight on Friday, May 30th, 1907, Bertha slashed Frank's penis with a razor at their San Jose residence. Frank was able to get to his firehouse, conveniently located next to his home, and from there he was taken to the Red Cross Hospital, where the wound to his genitals was dressed. Yeah, it was dressed. No one was sure he would recover, but evidently he was well enough to make a statement. He said that the attack by his wife came out of the blue. He and Bertha were chatting, and she was in a friendly mood when suddenly she wound up cutting his penis. Meanwhile, Bertha fled the scene and wasn't discovered until the wee hours the following night. She was located at the San Jose railroad yards dressed in men's clothing. Yes, men's clothing. And I had found this article over a year ago with actual photos of her dressed up in men's pants, a man's shirt. She was wearing like a man's hat, men's shoes, and she actually tucked her hair up under the hat like a man. She was following him around. He disappeared from the residence for like 2 weeks, and she was following him as he was actually going off with many different women. Okay, so now you know the down low on what's going on here. So meanwhile, Bertha fled the scene and wasn't discovered until the wee hours the following night. She was located at the San Jose railroad yards dressed in men's clothing. She admitted to the attack on Frank and claimed in her confident style it was actually his fault. He'd driven her out of her mind with fear that he was going to desert her and move to Mexico. The following is the article from the Santa Cruz Sentinel on June 2nd, 1907, only a few days after the event. Propped up in his cot at the Red Cross Hospital, shortly after noon today, Fire Captain Frank Beronda swore to a complaint before Justice Brown charging his wife, Bertha Beronda, with the crime of mayhem. Though he Though the maimed man is still weak from his injuries, his physicians state that he will undoubtedly live. The only danger which he faces is that blood poisoning may set in. The crime which Miss Beronda is charged is a felony defined by the criminal code as follows: every person who unlawfully and maliciously deprives a human being of his penis, a member of his body, or renders it useless, or cuts or disables the tongue, nose, ear, or lip. By the way, they didn't add penis because probably people didn't do that back then, and this is probably a first, is guilty of mayhem. And here's a part of an article. Wife slashes her spouse with razor. San Jose fireman will probably die from wounds received in a quarrel with his better half. Oh my God. Section 204 of that code states that mayhem is punishable by imprisonment in the state prison not exceeding 14 years. A little after midnight Thursday morning, Mrs. Beronda, without warning, attacked her husband in the dark with a razor, maiming him fearfully. He ran screaming into the firehouse on San Pedro Street, which adjoins his home, while his wife rushed through the streets in her nightdress to the north end, where she procured a suit of men's clothes, by the way, which she borrowed from her brother, which she donned. Beronda was taken to the Red Cross Hospital, where his injuries were treated. For several hours, the police searched for the woman and finally captured her near... Sorry, of course I'm getting all this crap now. Near the Broad Gauge Depot as she was mounting a bicycle on which she hoped to escape. She was taken to the city prison where she is still being held. Mrs. Beronda has admitted to the police that she maimed her husband, but she has expressed no regret, and that's why you see a smirk. She has no regret, for having done the awful deed. Her only excuse is that she wanted to be God damn it. Sorry about that. She wanted to be revenged on Beronda, whom she believed intended deserting her and leaving her for Mexico. Mrs. Beronda, up to this time, has not employed counsel. She will probably be arraigned before Judge Brown sometime Monday. Frank recovered from his injuries. Bertha was charged with mayhem, a charge applied to someone who is unlawfully and maliciously depriving a human of a member of his body or renders it useless. She was tried, found guilty, and sentenced to 5 years in San Quentin in 1908. And boy, was she happy about that. And yeah, she's still smirking, looking impishly, and like she's quite proud of herself, actually. Why did Bertha attack her husband so viciously? The San Jose sheriff jailed Frank and a fellow fire captain a few months before Bertha's assault on her husband. The rumor on the street was that the two men had been involved in some kind of election fraud, and more arrests would follow. It's plausible that, as Bertha feared, Frank was contemplating a move to Mexico, where he had relatives, at least until the election scandal blew over. It was also rumored that Frank was cheating on Bertha with other women, and she was in a jealous rage over his infidelities when she slashed him. By the way, she did actually witness him cheating on her multiple times in the 2 weeks he disappeared from their residence. So it's like they were like not really siding with her, you know what I mean? But yet he was caught in the act, if you know what I mean. It says here, Frank had a history of marital problems. His previous wife, Belle Doan, left her husband to marry Frank and then tried unsuccessfully to kill herself. Wow, this guy sounds like a real winner. Belle had said she attempted suicide out of desperation because Frank had abandoned her. The unhappy couple divorced in 1985. Did Bertha succeed in lopping off her husband's penis? A distasteful rumor circulated that Frank's penis, preserved in a jar of formaldehyde and used as an exhibit at Bertha's trial, was discovered decades later, stored in a basement cupboard of the courthouse. though there's no doubt his penis was badly cut. It's highly unlikely that it was severed and thus put in the jar, because an injury like that would have led to his death from blood loss and infection. Bertha was paroled on December 20th, 1909. Wow, she got out pretty quick. After serving less than 2 years of her sentence, she and Frank did not reconcile. However, both of them gave marriage another shot. Frank married a woman 33 years his junior, and Bertha worked as a hotel chambermaid in San Francisco after her release from San Quentin. Later, she worked as a waitress at a camp called Camp Meeker, a rustic vacation spot in Northern California. She married an older widower, Alex Ander Patterson, in 1921 in Los Angeles. But that marriage also ended in divorce, but he got to keep his member. He lived to be 77, and Bertha lived to 72. Very, very, very interesting. Look at that, like, smug look on her face. Absolutely no remorse. And I'm not saying if your husband's cheating on you to go cut his wanker off, but this is actually amazing, because this is something that is unheard of. Well, back in 1908, that is something that was absolutely unheard of. Yeah, and again, here she is, along with the other inmates during that year. And this is very, very interesting. So we find an article, and this is dated January of 1908. It says, woman on trial is charged with mayhem. Mrs. Bertha Beronda at San Jose pleads emotional insanity as her defense. They had emotional insanity pleas back then? I did not know that. Emotional insanity brought on by her extreme jealousy and suspicion. Now that's bullshit, because she caught him. She caught him several times screwing around, but they're basically saying, like, you know, pretty much like she's a hysterical woman, probably hallucinating this whole incident or incidents, you know what I mean? It says, extreme jealousy and suspicion of her husband's alleged relations with other women in the defense advanced by Mrs. Beronda, who is on trial in the Superior Court on a charge of mayhem. And I love that. I think that is hysterical. Does anybody get charged with mayhem anymore? I don't know. The complaining witness is Captain Frank Beronda of the local fire department. He was maimed by a wound inflicted by a razor in the hands of his wife. Mrs. Beronda is on stand and stated that she had left her husband because of his attentions to other women. The male attire, which she wore when she was arrested, belonged to her brother, she stated, and was worn frequently as a disguise when she wished to observe her husband's actions during his 2 weeks' absence from their residence. So in a way, they're like sort of painting her as an emotional, you know, jealous woman. But she actually caught the jerk. You know, I'm not saying go around and cut penises off, you know, if you get cheated on. But she caught this jerk doing this, and he didn't even know that she was like a man, that, you know, like following him around. She actually did that so well. Like, she like was hiding behind pillars as he was walking about with the other women. She was going in and out of bushes, dodging in and out of like entryways of places. She was like a total sleuth, like moving about sneakily, and he had no clue whatsoever. He just thought it was some guy that was like on the street, but it was her all the time, and dressed in her brother's clothing. So yeah, badass woman of the century award goes to Bertha Beronda, age 31, on February 29th, 1908, with the charge of mayhem.